Welcome, welcome, welcome. What is up, everybody? Craft beer professionals, breweries, brewery owners, people in the business. What is shaking? I'm Kyle Rheiner. Hope you're doing all right. Usually I'm navigating here for the Beer Mighty Things podcast. I almost, gave my intro there, but hey, it's a beautiful day. It's a great day to learn, and it's a great day to have a great day. So with that, today I'm going to talk a little bit about, actually a lot of it about management liability and creating safer workplaces, within the beverage space, but this can be taken to any business really. We got a lot to talk about, so let's hop into it. You might even hear my kids. I can hear them. They're virtual. Disclaimer, this is not the end all be all. This is for educational purposes only. It is not full, it is general, and it is not specifically tailored to your business. Everybody has different needs. Everybody has different sizes. Your risks and situations may vary. Craftbrewinginsurance.com, Arthur Hall Insurance. We're not liable for, any issues arising out of this or any advice. If we want to talk deeper, let's get on the phone and let's do that. So appreciate you. I am a certified insurance counselor and the food and beverage practice leader at Arthur Hall Insurance in Southeast Pennsylvania. We also have an office in Wilmington, Delaware. I am Kyle Rheiner. I have been insuring breweries, distilleries, any craft beverage manufacturer for 9 years now. I love it. It's a lot of fun. Insurance is not that exciting, but when you can work with breweries and awesome people all the time, it is a lot more fun. A little bit about me. So this is me on the cover of Independent Agent magazine in November of 2016 was the cover story. I was named Niche Master by Independent Agent magazine. We had an interview. They interviewed a number of folks, 50 plus in the United States, and said, hey, listen, we thought your interview was the best. We love what you had to say. We love that you're working with this specific niche in the craft beverage world. You're working with a lot of startups. You are working with millennials. So that was kind of where this all came about. I said, hey, do you want to be on the cover of our magazine? I said, sure. So I actually got a copy of it framed on the wall. I've been named Young Gun of 2018 by Insurance Business Magazine. That was an honor, kind of like a, who's who or 40 under 40 in the insurance business. Very popular magazine, and it was an honor. So 5-star professional, named up and comer, and I work with over 120 beverage manufacturers in the United States. We continue to grow. As I mentioned, I was working with a lot of startups. Now, with our expertise and our experience, a good fit for us is a brewery that is 3 years or older, somewhere in the realm of 2 million revenue or more. The things that we get into, I'm a certified insurance counselor. So the things that I get into get a little deeper. Some of those startups don't really need me yet. It's like, you have a little crack in your steps. You don't need a big dump truck to come work on that. So I like to work on the more complex things, multiple locations, many employees. So we'll get into that. I am, again, certified insurance counselor. That's sort of like an accountant taking a bunch of exams over a course of a couple of years, becoming a CPA, right? So it's almost, I have a master's degree essentially in insurance. I love it. I'm an insurance geek, coverage nerd, bring it on, whatever you want to say. I love it. Property and casualty licenses, all 50 states. We also do life insurance. We'll get into that too. All right. So I mentioned the Beer Mighty Things podcast. I created this podcast. You can tune in on any platform, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts, go find it. We have 112 episodes with another episode coming this week. I usually put one out every week. It's great for breweries and planning. It's great for breweries that are expanding. It's great for, being safe and working on OSHA type stuff. So the goal is to provide value. It is a business podcast, is a business library for craft beverage manufacturers, people in the business. It's a lot of fun. Having a lot of authors on lately. And so everything's sorted by topic. There's a lot of value. I've had a number of folks, update their business plan or, make tweaks to their business based on the guests that I've had on. Sometimes I'll pop on, you get to hear me just talk, but for the most part, I have guests and like to have some fun. I did an episode that's going to be similar to what we're going to talk about today. That was episode 99 with Andrew of Craft Beer Professionals. We had on Safe Bars and we had on Fisher Phillips. We got into this pretty deep. We're going to do it again. I'm going to keep it not as deep, but we can always get into those conversations later. So again, the goal today is to educate you and equip you to run a safer business, keep your employees safe, healthy, happy. Um, you got you guys are pillars in the community. So let's continue to do things right. Let's continue to be around. Let's create safer workplaces. Okay. My goal is to give you 5 nuggets that you can take back to your team. They're repeatable. Hope you learned something today. And you can use this stuff in your meetings again to become a safer workplace. Feel free to reach out. My information will be at the end. So again, the what? Why are we here? What is it that we're talking about? Management liability, all the things that face the management of your brewery, your distillery, etc. We want to equip you guys. There are ways to manage that risk. We can talk OSHA. We're going to talk directors and officers coverage. We're going to talk fiduciary liability. We're going to talk crime. And we're going to talk employment practices liability, which is the big topic. We're going to spend the majority of our time there. Why are we doing this? Again, create better workplaces, protect your assets, and create community. Let's do it. OSHA housekeeping, right? We want to have a safer, physically safer workplace, right? Reduce those slip and falls, reduce those injuries. If there's a fire, we don't want to be blocking exit signs. We want to have a fun workplace, and that starts with safety. So what I alluded to here is the Beer Money Things podcast. I did a 4-part series. We covered A to Z with OSHA specialist Corey Martin. He is the owner of Spotlight Safety. He focuses on breweries. And the reason why that podcast came up and why I do what I do, I've been trained at a brewery. I've brewed. I've been in the hospitality business my whole life. And then from a risk management standpoint, I figured, why not put it all together? It's fun. I get it. I've been there. Episode 67, 71, 76, and 77. These are with Corey. We are hitting everything, okay? We want to be physically safer. We want to have cleaner spaces. We want to have safer spaces. We want to reduce the risk of OSHA sightings, OSHA fines. Their foot traffic now, their foot patrol has quadrupled in the last few years. They're handing out fines left and right, okay? We want to make your meetings more productive, more memorable, train your staff. The topics of these podcasts were episode 67 was OSHA compliance, right? We kind of started high level, funneled it down. Communication, safety culture, and those OSHA 300 logs that you must post on your walls. Know the risks, anticipate accidents, talk about them with your team. Those things that are near misses, when you talk about them, they're avoidable. When you don't talk about them, they happen, they become bigger. 71, we talk PPE. Obviously, we've heard PPE over the last 2 years a lot, right? I didn't really talk much about PPE before that, but in this situation, we're talking about the hazards that you're going to see, the chemicals you're using. We're talking about the boots, the clothing, protecting your eyes, your ears, and we talked about masks. We learned a lot about the meters and things like that. It was a super educational episode. I totally learned a lot from that. Episode 76 was OSHA's reporting requirements, guidelines, and deadlines. So that was dates. Here's what you need to have and when. Here is who it's for. Episode 77, we talked about looking into your second and third locations, expanding. We talked about finding that location, testing the soil, looking at the water sources, also the pollution and city codes, zoning. And then when you have multiple locations, well, you might have the brewery, these people maybe get put on a pedestal, and then you have a tap room over here where these people maybe feel inferior. So how do we bridge that gap and have a strong culture across your locations? Tune in those episodes. Super helpful. When we talk risk, there are 3 ways to mitigate risk. We can self-insure, which means, hey, we have enough cash on hand. We are not going to take out an insurance policy. If there's a claim, we got this. We're good. We'll pay it. Claim, allegation, lawsuit, that sort of thing. Number 2 would be risk transfer. And this is essentially you buy an insurance policy. You pay a premium. When a claim occurs, you pay your deductible and you transfer the rest of that bill, that claim, that fine to the insurance company. So risk transfer to the insurance company. Number 3, avoid, right? I get a lot of questions about, hey, can we have dogs on premises? Yeah, you can, but do you want to, right? What if dogs fight? That's a whole different animal. That gets, no pun intended, that gets into homeowners policies, banned dog lists. So if you have a situation where you are thinking about it, you're unsure of it, maybe it's best to avoid it. I'll leave it at that. Self-insure, risk transfer, avoid the situation altogether. So when we talk about management liability, first thing I'm going to hit on is directors and officers liability. You have the folks who own the business, you have the directors and officers, you have boards of directors. This is going to cover them for those non-tangible type situations that could arise. And here's why you should care. Okay. Here are some claim situations. Again, this is not bodily injury or property damage, right? That's more physical liability. These are those things like breach of duty, breach of contract. These things arise, management company versus management company, or here, creditors are suing the directors and officers of a business, of the brewery, alleging that they mismanaged the brewery. Now it has to file for bankruptcy because of their wrongdoing, embezzlement, whatever it might be. This is the only policy that's going to kind of step in and say, hey, we could potentially have coverage here. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. There we go. Second situation here is, a lender sues the officer and the corporation, right? So we filled out a loan application. We want to expand. We want to buy new tanks. We fill out a loan application. Well, we fill it out in a way that allows us to get the loan. However, it might not be accurate. The lender can come back and sue the folks who filled out that application, saying, hey, this is fraudulent. It's not accurate. If you filled it out correctly, we would not have lent you this money. The lender can sue the business, and that falls on your directors and officers liability. Without this coverage, they sued the business. Again, that's when you're essentially self-insuring. If you don't have the coverage, you're self-insuring, paying that out of pocket. Another situation is when you have a failed merger, right? Two breweries are looking to potentially merge. It fails. Finger pointing occurs. And now we got attorney's fees. Okay. Without directors and officers liability coverage, you're self-insuring. You don't have that coverage. You get a lawsuit. You're paying out of pocket. Again, non-tangible things, no physical injury or damage. And this is excluded on your general liability policy. Think about it. It's affordable. Think about it. Management liability also has fiduciary liability included. So fiduciary means that you are handling funds on behalf of someone, essentially, right? You can breach that duty. You can mismanage that. So when we're talking about employee benefit plans or retirement plans, 401ks, that sort of thing, you have a duty to handle that money transparently, correctly, consistently. So in a situation here, the brewery breached the fiduciary duty. The Department of Labor concluded that the employee stock ownership plan, that the shares lost value because the company was using their own appraisal, which was overvalued, versus a third party's that would be accurate. And the distributions that came out were either more or less, right? So then the folks who are included in that stock ownership plan realized they weren't getting what they expected. $600,000 paid out in settlement, and a majority of these items become defense costs. You're paying attorneys. Those coverages can be inside the limit that you have on your policy or outside the limit. Or again, if you self-insure, you don't have the coverage, they're out of pocket. They could be very detrimental. This was $600,000 of a mismanagement of employee stock option plan. You have an ERISA plan. Hey, we're going to fund your 401k. Hey, we're going to help fund your group health plan. Here, the employer deducted premiums from the employee's paychecks. And instead of them going into the medical plan or the 401k plan, they went elsewhere. 50 grand to 150 grand paid for each of the employees that were misrepresented. Again, the more you pay somebody, the more that comes out, the bigger that claim is. Again, my goal is to educate and equip you for what exists, help your management team just be aware of what exists. Crime, it happens. It's everywhere. It could be employee theft, right? So the coverage here is going to be, maybe stealing out of the register, maybe stealing product, selling it on their own, collusion amongst employees. Hey, if you do this, I'll do this. We'll get them, that kind of deal. Those are kind of usually like a $2,500 limit per occurrence, or per policy limit. You got to read your policy. And these aren't situations that are like, well, if they happen. No, they're gonna happen. So just be aware, right? It's not if, it's when. Somebody handling checks, right? They're forging checks, they're altering checks, altering the dollar amount, drafts from the bank accounts, promissory notes. Forgery or alteration is a thing. You want to have some, more than one person check off on this, more than one person sign off on this. And you want to make sure you're just, running a tight ship. Pay attention. The bookkeepers, when you watch those specials, a lot of times those bookkeepers are the ones who are embezzling the money because they know where to hide it. Theft inside and outside the premises. So inside, could be an alleged robbery, and a person taking money to the bank could be outside the premises. So what I would say there is, if you have somebody who takes the money from the register to the bank daily, have them vary it. Maybe have a different person do it, because what happens is somebody watches that, pays attention to that, and they know Thursday at 1:00, this person gets in this car and they go to the bank. I know they have cash on them, so just be aware. Alter that stuff up. Computer fraud covers loss from when a computer inside the premises is used to transfer money outside the premises. So I had this situation. We covered the claim. CEO and CFO are actually standing next to each other at the computer, in front of the computer. Email comes from CEO to CFO, says, hey, I need you to pay this $60,000 invoice. They're standing next to each other and says, hey, why'd you send me this email? Person says, I didn't send you that email. Shut down the computers, got forensics involved. And what would happen is you click that link, and instead of that link going to pay where it should have been paid, it would go then to the hackers, say, bank account or wherever they want it routed. We were able to stop it, caught it. Thank God they were standing next to each other. But that kind of then gets into your cyber liability, which is a whole different animal for a whole different day. Funds transfer fraud. Financial institution receives a request that, it looks like it's from you, but it's not, and they process it. So this would be that situation like, hey, I didn't authorize that. That must have been a hacking type situation. Let's go get that money back. So crime happens. Cyber crime happens. It's not going away. Just be vigilant is another topic for your employees. Don't click on links, that sort of thing. But then the big one, May 2021. This was, I was actually in South Carolina, and I saw Twitter blowing up and Instagram blowing up, and I'm friends with Brian Allen. And I had her on my podcast earlier talking about just lagers and making Pilsners and clean, crisp beers, and had a blast, from Notch Brewing. So we became friends. And then this happens, right? She posts a message out there on Instagram that says, has anyone in the industry ever been, been involved in sexism or assault in the brewery? Obviously, we know where that went, right? This big Me Too movement. Now, this coverage is not on your policy. You need to buy it, okay? But this is that image. When I think of this, this is the article from VinePair. That's the front page. Sweeping accusations of sexism and assault rock the craft beer industry. And it happened quick. Good news travels, bad news travels very, very fast. Again, self-insure, transfer the risk to an insurance company, or avoid it altogether. So again, employment practices liability insurance, also called EPLI or EPLI or EPL. Me Too movement, right here, rat magnet, reckoning, right? That's what I now think of. Sexual, physical, verbal harassment, discrimination, failure to hire, failure to promote. These are the things that this policy covers. A lot of these things, again, they're not physical injury. They are not physical damage. They are verbal. They are failure to do things. So it's not only like, hey, you did this, but there's also, hey, you didn't do this. You didn't hire me because, you didn't promote me because, and then you promoted that person on what basis? You fired me because you gave me a bad evaluation, or you left things out. It wasn't documented. Retaliation is the biggest offender here, the biggest type of claim when it comes to EPLI. Bullying, not adhering to the Family and Medical Leave Acts, breach of employment contracts, again, non-tangible things. I have a claim here. Reduction of hours, wage and hour situations, okay? The EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, I have a brewery that I work with. They have a kitchen, and one of the line cooks complained to the EEOC, anonymously. Hey, my employer cut my hours because of my race. Employer says that's not true. However, this claim paid out. We had this coverage on the policy, thank goodness. So what happened was, the employee gets $8,000 worth of lost wages. The attorney gets $4,000. So we kind of see this as a domino effect, right? You have attorneys who are kind of like, hey, this is low-hanging fruit. I'm going to go after this. We also see the other line cooks, the other employees saying, well, that happened to me too. If he can get the payout, well, maybe I can too, right? So it's bad culture. If you have good, happy employees, you don't see this stuff happening. If you have transparent communication, these things tend to not happen. All right. So we need to build a culture. We need to be aware. We need to be fair, right? And we need to have guidelines. We need to write stuff down. We need to have a handbook, and we'll get into that. Who does employment practices liability insurance cover? It's different per policy. You can get a broadening endorsement. So instead of it just saying, hey, it's the organization, it can say it's the organization, it's the partners and the managers. It can also say, hey, it's the directors and officers, board of directors. It can say all employees are covered, all supervisors are covered, stockholders are covered, and then, others as well. But they're not all the same. You need to read your policy. You need to get a policy. This coverage is excluded on a general liability policy. It's excluded on your umbrella policy. Even when you get it, when you purchase it, it's most likely excluded on your umbrella policy. Umbrella policy gives you additional limits. So I guess in this situation, they don't want to give you additional limits other than what you've already purchased, because these can get hairy, and we'll get into that. All right. Again, we're defending and protecting you against these claims arising out of complex laws and regulations. Who needs it? So working with Fisher Phillips, the employment attorneys, they're saying, hey, businesses that have 5 employees, like that starts to trigger, right? That becomes kind of that sweet spot of when we need to have this. Businesses that have a sensitive nature of interaction that often employ a younger workforce. So I've worked in bars, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in breweries, right? Hospitality as well, hotels and things like that. When you have, younger folks, and I'm saying 20s, when you're waiting tables, maybe you're in your teens, right? 18, 21. The folks who work in this industry are typically, vibrant, flirty, having fun. One day that person might give you a hug right before the shift. Hey, so great to see you. And then the next day they're having a bad day. You give them that hug and they don't want that hug. It's tough. You need to have guidelines. You need to be, again, communicating. So again, who needs it? 5+ employees, those in the hospitality business, really those in any business anymore, but this is where we tend to see that more flirty kind of workforce. But who buys it? All right. So 23% of companies with less than 100 employees, only 23. So 1 in 5 businesses with 100+ employees buy this coverage. It's affordable, guys. It's affordable. 34%. So my math, I was going to say 3 out of 10. I was going to say 2 out of 5, but then we're at 40%. 3 out of 10 businesses with 500 to 700 employees are buying this. A company that big has the extra additional capital to purchase these policies and protect themselves from ruin. 40%, 2 out of 5 companies with 1,000 employees are buying this coverage. Okay. Your insurance agent needs to be talking to you about this stuff. There are many, many coverages that you don't just get and you can't assume that you have. You need to work with an advisor, somebody who's going to advocate on your behalf. Someone's going to kind of say, hey, listen, you need that. I know you don't want me talking about it. I know you think that you want me to make you spend more money, but we have a general, genuine concern here. Don't ruin your business. You got a good thing going. Let's cover it. The average cost for defending and settling employment law cases is $160,000. So again, if you're self-insuring, you're not buying this coverage. I'm assuming you don't just have $160,000 just lying around to pay cash for attorney's fees and handle these claims. So transfer that risk. The average jury award is $217,000. The average duration of an employment claim spans 300 days. These take a long time. There's investigation, there's documentation. You need to sift through that. The longer this goes on, the more defense costs that you're paying. Okay. It's a lot. Here are some examples of claims. I mentioned retaliation, right? So here's one where multiple employees allege that the policies and practices were applied towards one employee and not necessarily fairly to others. So they asserted that the company records were missing. There's no data. There's no tracking. The employees were provided written notice of being terminated without a reason. Again, document this stuff. Case settled for $400,000. National origin discrimination. All right. Similar to the one where I said that, hey, you cut my hours because of my race. Right. So here, an employee and U.S. immigrant alleged repeated racial and national origin discrimination, mocking of accent, mocking of clothes by the supervisor. Another supervisor ignored it. $220,000 paid out, including defense costs. Don't be a jerk. Come on. Third-party disability. Wheelchair-bound person alleged that a transportation driver refused to load the chair onto the vehicle, that the lift wasn't working, and just was kind of just being a jerk, right? So plaintiff brings the complaint, wins, $20,000 legal fees. Okay. Gender discrimination. 2 employees filed a complaint that their employer alleged gender discrimination, harassment, retaliation. After conducting the investigation, the employer concluded that there was no evidence of the allegations and terminated both due to their behavior. The 2 employees then filed a lawsuit because we were violating the Equal Pay Act, retaliation, and defamation. Settled for over $2 million and $250,000 in defense costs. So these are happening more and more. We got to have guidelines. We got to be people. We got to listen. We got to have empathy, right? We got to train. We have to talk about these things. And when we're talking about this, coverage, cost, let's do it. So, for $125 a month, you can probably get a $250,000 limit tacked onto your policy. It's not as broad, but it's something. All right. You're looking at probably, for a brewery, $1,500. Again, $125 a month. And what we're rating this off of is, where was your staff last year compared to this year? Part-time, full-time? Who left? Who left voluntarily? Who left involuntarily? What are your sales at? How's the skill of the management team? How often are you guys talking about this? Do you have a handbook? All right. Coverage limits, again, $250,000 up to $10 million. What I've been seeing is, $1 million policy is probably around $3,500, maybe $4,000 now, going up a little bit. Again, these claims are becoming more prevalent. They're paying out. Premiums are going to go up. Deductibles are typically $5,000 that I see. You can buy a higher deductible of $10,000. That would bring your premium down slightly. You can do a deductible of $2,500. Rarely do I see $1,000. There's some, but $5,000 is the average. If you have a policy in force now and you want to move it because you want to save money, or you want to move it to a different agent, different carrier, you don't like your company that you're with, there is something on here called a retro date, because these are a claims made policy. So it's not when the occurrence happened, not when that assault happened. It's when the claim was made. So we have a retro date on these. And basically, you want to, if this policy started in 2016 and you want to rewrite it in 2021, we want to make sure that that retro date says 2016. Because if you rewrite this in 2021, you put up a wall for all claims that happened prior. So be aware of the retro date. Talk to your insurance agent. Call us. Okay. There are endorsements to this. So it's not just like, hey, I want EPLI coverage, right? It's like, okay, well, that's your baseline. Do we want wage and hour coverage? Do we want the duty to defend versus duty to pay? Do we want third-party coverage? This is like a patron is, saying things to your employees, right? So it's not just employee versus employee, but you can get the third-party coverage. Somebody touched your employee, right? A patron sitting at a table. touch somebody walking by. It was unwanted. That's third-party coverage. Punitive damages, punishment, immigration investigation. And then with these things, right, the breweries are on blast right now. Crisis management coverage. You can have that, right, to fix your PR, to hire a PR company to fix that reputation, because now, as we're seeing it, breweries are not going to, or even being allowed to go to festivals unless you have a code of conduct and you change things and your staff is saying, hey, we like where this is going. You gotta be careful. Okay. How to apply. Again, the cost is different for each place, each brewery. Again, we're looking at turnover, voluntary and involuntary. We're looking at the history of the business. We're looking at the management experience. We are looking at part-time employees and full-time employees. They probably want more full-time employees and less turnover, right? That usually means a healthy business, healthy trajectory moving forward. We're looking at the revenues year over year and, financials, ins and outs, right? P&L, balance sheet. It's usually a 2-page app. It's fairly easy. It's worth just getting that filled out, send it in, see what it looks like. You don't have to accept the policy, but you can get an idea of what it costs. And the policies are 1 year long, 12 months. And you would then at each renewal, you're filling it out again because financials change, employee count changes. Questions that they're going to ask you, right? So we can almost make this a 1-pager. Have you had an employment related claim? Do you employ independent subcontractors? Again, full and part-time count, current year, previous 2 years. Where do we think we're going moving forward? Are we growing? Breakdown of salaries. They're going to say, how many people are you paying that make less than 60 grand? How many make 61 to 120? How many make 120 or more? All right. Those wage and hour discriminations, everybody makes different amounts. Different amounts are going to pay out in a claim. Do you keep payroll records for everybody? For how long do you keep those? Is it indefinite? Do you keep it 2 years, 7 years? Do you have it just saved on your software? Do you have written procedures, right? Equal opportunity employment, anti-discrimination procedures, anti-sexual harassment, all these things in your handbook. Have they been reviewed by legal counsel? Each state, we can help you build, an employee handbook, but you need to have it reviewed by legal counsel. Every state is different. Some things don't fly in Pennsylvania that might fly in Iowa. Okay. In the last 3 years, has any applicant had any claims paid out 10 grand or more? We want to know. Got to see your claims history, if any. If so, they want a full description, date, type, allegations, current status. What are you doing to mitigate that moving forward? Fisher Phillips says, hey, we got 5 steps that we can implement, right? So my goal, again, what is it? Why are we here? What can we do? And what steps can we take to implement, right? So step 1, implement effective policies that lay the groundwork for company expectations. Again, do you have a no harassment policy, anti-sexual harassment? Are there repercussions? Step 2, communicate these policies. Talk to your employees, sit down. Make sure that the employees are aware of the company procedures, policies, resources, know where to find them, know who to go to. Maybe have somebody who kind of champions this, right? You have your HR coordinator, essentially. Train your managers to address issues and avoid common mistakes. Okay, this starts in management, top down. An issue that's raised, stop everything while it's fresh in everyone's mind, promptly investigate. Take detailed notes, timelines, everything. Consistently enforce your standards. Consistent, right? One person is not more special than others, right? We all are treated the same. When you're not treated the same, that's when these issues arise, as we've seen. So again, recap, in the last 20 years, employee lawsuits have risen 400%. Roughly 41% of those being brought against private companies with less than 100 employees. It's the majority of the breweries on this call, right? This can happen. It's not an if, it's a when. Like I said, I've seen 4 or 5 of these claims in 9 years of writing these policies. If you wind up going to court and losing, the average jury is $217,000, and that does not include court costs and legal fees. Okay, you're looking at 300 grand. In addition, if there's a frivolous case against you from a disgruntled employee, maybe that's not wrong. I mean, maybe it is wrong. Like a lot of this is, that he said, she said, he said, she said, she said. and there's that investigation, right? It was frivolous. Again, that domino effect. One sees it pay out, the rest want to follow suit. You still need to pay the upfront cost to defend your company. Okay, you're still going to have to pay out of pocket. I don't want to scare people away. I don't want to lead with fear, but again, you need to be aware of what's going on. I love your breweries. I love you guys to be around. I want you guys to continue to do the right thing. And that starts with education. So what can you do right now? You can create an employee handbook. And if you don't have one, we can help you. If you do have one, make sure you're including the other procedures, the new, anti-harassment, also marijuana in the workplace. You want to have some paperwork in there. You want to have a form that these folks sign off on that says that, they understand what they've read and they will adhere to your policies. Develop training and onboarding procedures. Consistent, and do this continuously, ongoing. And again, for the managers, right? The managers are not above everybody, right? There is their job to create a safe workplace. Okay. They're managing a team. They need to lead by example. Claims, again, report immediately, thoroughly investigate, because again, you're going to have timelines, you're going to have camera footages, and you're going to have witnesses. So do your due diligence, but report it to your insurance agent ASAP. Just as a report only. Say, hey, listen, we got something. It happened yesterday. We're investigating, but can you alert the insurance company just so they're aware? All right. The longer it drags on, the more information gets lost. People forget. Things get cloudy. It's going to make it harder. It's going to take longer. It's going to cost more. Again, discussions in your meetings with managers, consistent, keep it going, ongoing. Have an open forum, communicate, have a comment box, right? Drop it in, be anonymous. HR Uprise and those resources exist now. Plenty of information. When you are terminating an employee, have an exit interview, okay? Don't just say, all right, you're out of here with no documentation. They need to sit down, sign off, understand why they're being terminated, and you need to make sure that you're following state laws. Again, they're all different. I do recommend working with an employment attorney who is familiar with this, or again, hire a HR resource who can handle these things for you. I think the whole thing we need to consider, right? Be consistent, repeat, and don't be a jerk. Other things that you can do for planning for your brewery is review your buy-sell agreements annually. These are legally binding contracts that stipulates how a partner's share of the business may be reassigned if that partner dies or otherwise leaves the brewery. Somebody passes away, and now, say, a spouse inherits the brewery, doesn't want the brewery, doesn't like the other owners. Now you have a conflict. So work that out, review that annually. Things change, and it's, maybe it takes a couple hours, but you can have a couple beers while you do it, make an event out of it. But you got to talk about planning, right? Failing to plan is planning to fail. We got to communicate. Key person life insurance is something that we offer as well. So provides a death benefit to the business if the owner or significant employee passes away, right? You have $1 million loan out there. You have a $500,000 loan out there. You have shareholders out there, investors. Somebody passes away, business can no longer run. These people want their money. How do we do that? So a key person life insurance policy is usually a 10-year term policy, or you get to choose that, but it pays out to pay off those folks in the event that something happened. It's affordable. Again, these things, I know a lot of people don't like insurance, but they only because they don't use it. So when you have a claim and the insurance pays out, you're happy you had it. Plan ahead. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Kyle at craftbrewinginsurance.com. You can call me anytime. You can email me, craftbrewinginsurance.com. Check us out. All 50 states. I'm located in Southeast Pennsylvania, working with over 120 breweries, distilleries, mead, seltzer, cider. And check it out. The website's got plenty of testimonials. I like to post them up there. Just, got kind words from our clients. They love working with us. And you can call me 657-BEER Insurance, 657-BEER INS. It's 233-4467. Follow me on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. Beer Mighty Things podcast. Tune in, listen, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, wherever you want. But I appreciate you. And, thanks for being you. And thanks for continuing to make the beer industry a great place. and let's keep it going. Let's do the right thing. Thank you.